faster.
I'll withdraw the question. Let's do it again. How many seconds, I need to know this, how many seconds were you and Miss Amani Ellis in the hallway? Let's just pick a time. You pick it.
I'll say from like the beginning all the way to like walking down, it had to be like a minute or less.
Okay. And you say walking down, you mean walking into Dr. Finke's office or leaving? When you say walking down where?
No, I got off the elevator, so I'm walking, trying to find the room, the office. So in between that's like, that was like the minute there. Like I feel, like the verbal dispute, it had to be like 20 seconds of that.
When did Dr. Finke come out of the bar?
At the end.
When it was all done?
Well, when Tiara was calming down, she was still like screaming and like trying to explain herself to Tiara. I just walked away.
When you got off the elevator, was there anyone else in that elevator?
No.
How long did it take before Tiara came out?
How long did it take?
That's Tiara Malcolm.
Yes.
What's your best estimate?
Like 40 seconds at most, or like 50 seconds, like around there.
So you and Miss Amani Ellis were alone for approximately 40 to 50 seconds before anybody came out.
Yes.
And in those 40 to 50 seconds, you could have scratched her face, you could have cut her face in those 40 seconds.
We're not going to engage in speculation.
When you had the fingernails on that day, what color were the fingernails?
They were like
Green?
no. They were like
And you said that there were some kind of flat stones on there?
yes,
Were those flat stones on all 10 fingernails?
most likely.
Were the 10 fingernails all the same size and had the same exact stone on them? So if there was one stone, it would be one stone times 10, or is one might have 3 stones, another one might have 1 stone, and the stones change. What do you call them? The things that you said yesterday, what did you call them? On it. Flat rhinestones. Were any of them sharp?
Not if they're flat, they're not sharp. If they're like 3D, like popping up, they're sharp. If they're flat,
And do you ever wear the ones that are 3D? Were you wearing the ones that were 3D on the daily basis?
no.
At any time? And how do you know that those rhinestones that are 3D, how do you know they're sharp? Why did you just tell us that?
Why are we talking about that?
Do you remember how many rhinestones were on each fingernail? It was 1, 2, or 3. Aside from that day, the date of the incident, which was February 24th of 2018, aside from that day, have you ever seen Miss Amani Ellis either before or after?
Honest truth, I wouldn't even recognize, like, I couldn't forget she came here.
Well, isn't everything you just told us honest truth?
Yes.
Now, when Miss Tiara Malcolm came outside in about 40 to 50 seconds, she came out first, right? How long after that?
Yes, yes.
How long after that piece
It came out like 4 to 5 seconds later, 3 seconds later.
When Tiara Malcolm came outside, how did she get between the two of you?
She literally, she was like, what are you guys doing? What's going on? And what's going on? And then she was like, this bitch just fucking hit me. This bitch just hit me. I'm gonna fuck her up. And I'm just like, I was so confused because it's like, no, I didn't. Like, I didn't hit you. And then, that's when like Finky came out. And he's like, what's going on? Go to my office. So I just like went to his office and stuff like that.
Right. Justified that Tiara Malcolm at some point was between the two of you.
Yes.
The hamburger bun and the hamburger?
Yeah.
She was the hamburger, two of you were the buns, right?
Yeah.
How did the hamburger get inside the bun?
I'm not sure if I gave her space or one of us gave her space. She wasn't like really like in. She was just like, what are you guys doing? What is this? And then she just got in the middle because she just was like going crazy. I don't know where she just turned up like.
And you just testified now that Monty Ellis was yelling that you hit her, right?
Yes.
She was saying that. You didn't hit her.
No.
Did you take a swing at her? When Miss Tiara Woods was in between the two of you, did you try to take a swing over Miss Tiara Woods?
No.
How tall are you? Tiara Malcolm. Tiara Malcolm. How tall are you? How tall are you?
That's what I am. 5'3".
Okay, how about on that day of the incident when you had your shoes on? Were they flats or heels?
Should be flat.
So, and do you know how tall Mrs. Monty is? When you were standing face to face, were your eyes at the same level? Was she taller? Was she shorter? What is your recollection?
We was face to face, so she's practically like my height, or just much taller, but she was practically like my height. But she is like security heavy.
What does security heavy mean? Just tell us. What does that mean?
Like she just looks a little she could protect the building type B. You know what I'm saying? She just looked more developed than me.
Get our security guards to be more developed?
Assistant.
Did you at any time tell Miss Imani Ellis that you were pregnant? That building, you agree, is not Cedars-Sinai Hospital, correct? I withdraw the vote. The building you were in is a medical building, correct? But it wasn't a hospital. Was it a hospital? And there's all types of different tenants that are in the building, right? Do you know if there were other tenants that had offices in that building? You were on the 5th floor, correct?
Yes.
And when you were walking down the hall,
on AP Live
there were other doors
under
there,
restriction
right?
and
Wasn't
state
just Dr. Finky, there was other different offices there, correct?
And as you can see, we've moved. We're now by the red carpet. where all the action is beginning behind us.
Yes, it is still day one of the Venice Film Festival.
When you
the weather
were
is taking a
getting
bit of a
angry,
turn. You never really know what to
did
expect.
you believe
but
that,
yes, it has started drizzling
your
a little
anger
bit.
would
So a lot
harm
of
your
umbrellas
baby?
are out. People are walking behind us in their sort of fancy.
When you went to see Dr.
wares,
Finky,
trying not to
did you
get
tell
too wet.
him,
Excuse us.
I got so angry right now,
But,
something happened,
we're
whatever
really
you told me,
excited.
is it
Pretty
harmful to
soon
my baby?
on the red
Did you ask
carpet,
him?
the jury's probably going to arrive, followed by,
The opening film.
followed by the
La
opening
Grazia,
film, the
so-
House of La Grazia.
So Paolo Sorrentino, Tony Servillo, they'll be on that carpet
Yeah.
later, and probably like local dignitaries, a
Yeah.
few influencers, some Italian stars.
Probably
it's a
some-
big old mix, isn't it?
Armani beauty sponsors, things like
yeah.
that. Yeah, sometimes there's always somebody on the Venice red carpet who you're like, wait, they're very famous. Why are they here?
Yeah.
Often they're related to a sponsor. So how the red carpet works, it's kind of a little funny because the fancy people get driven
earlier-
from the Hotel Excelsior, which is probably less than a football
Did you,
field length from the actual red
anything
carpet, but they get driven
about
in
this-
the car
the
sponsor of the
incident
festival and
of
then just
February
let out
24,
at the red
2018
carpet.
on the
I can
internet?
walk that in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things we were noticing, sometimes on fancy red carpets, the
I think I
Oscars,
said
they will
something
tint it. They know if rain's going to be
because
forecast, and we were
around
just
that
noticing
time,
that
she
this red
did
carpet
went
does not
live
seem to be tinted. So
and
I
said
wonder if people
something.
will be having their own
And my
personal
fans
umbrella
party.
carriers or anything along those
And
lines.
she was
You
just
can probably
practically
see, you might get to
saying,
see behind
like,
the back of
all
some of
these
the
lies
performances.
about
They all
me,
have to
stuff
wear
like
black
that, and I
tie
was
carpet,
like,
so it's
I've
not
been-
just the stars that are all dressed up. They have to
I
look
did
smart
not
too,
touch
just to make
that
sure the
girl
whole
at
carpet
all.
looks nice. So you'll see, they're all dressed up.
Well,
And they have to get there
I've
very
never
early, as we're all
gotten
still
into
like
detail
more than an
about
hour
it.
away from the end of this carpet. So
And when
they'll
she
be
was posting
arriving
things,
from now, and
she was
soon
telling
there'll be
other
some cars
people
arriving,
that
I
you
imagine.
assaulted
But at the
her
moment,
or
as you
hit her
say,
with
people are
something
walking
physical,
down and
correct?
walking in, aren't they?
Walking in. But today turned into a pretty
Yes.
exciting day, sort of
It did.
unexpectedly. So we've been talking about,
and then
all
you
the Hollywood stars
replied and
that
posted
are
things
coming
as well, correct?
during the week. Tomorrow.
Do you remember what you
we're supposed to see
posted?
George Clooney, Emma Stone,
It
lots
was-
of big Hollywood
I don't
stars.
think
but
I
actually we saw
posted
some of them
something.
today,
We
getting
did.
off boats.
I'm not
Yeah,
even
that's
sure
right,
if
yeah,
it
we
was
had
a
the surprise
comment
visit
or
from
like
George
if
Clooney.
I
So he
did like a
appeared on
live or
Excelsior,
something.
which is the
And
sort of
it had to be
one
quick.
5-star hotel that kind of exists
like,
on
that's
the
a fucking
Lido.
lie.
It's where most guests kind of
Okay, yeah.
arrive at the
I'm
point they
guessing
arrive at, and then from there they often get another boat or they get a
What was that?
to be ferried around the island.
I said,
So we
that's a
assume he was doing
fucking
some press
lie.
here today, like early press, as
Fuck
he's not
outta
due on
here.
the Lido till tomorrow
He's trying to get
for
some money.
his press conference and his premiere.
trying to get
So we're guessing he was doing press.
She
So
is.
he turned up
didn't
along
know.
with most of his
But
co-stars,
she
Adam
sued me for
Sandler.
25
Laura
million.
Dern,
Yeah.
Billy Crudup.
Did you sue
So
her?
all of them are starring
No.
in
Could you have sued
a
her?
brand new
Sued
film
her?
from Noah Baumbach called Jay Kelly. It's a Netflix film. It's sort of a comedic drama about a middle-aged actor going on a soul-searching journey through Europe with his manager, who's played by Adam Sandler, and that's one of the 21 films playing in competition.
And they were probably going into
Did
that
you
hotel to do
ever
a junket, so there'll be
apologize
lots
on
of journalists
those
sitting around waiting
internet
for their 5 minutes that
emails
they
or
might get
whatever
with
you
that
posted?
star.
Did you ever on the
And
post
it's a quick turnaround.
apologize
So
for
waiting
anything
outside,
that
you
you
go
did
in,
that day?
do your 5 minutes, and then you get shunted off out, and
Do
that's
you
it.
feel
You're
by
done.
using
So
all those
we imagine that's why he's here.
And we
words
can
you should have
definitely
apologized?
expect to see them again tomorrow several times. First as they arrive for the press conferences sometime in the afternoon, and then later
Are you
for
aware
the premiere. So
that
yeah, this
your security
this is
guard
just
spoke
this is
to
just
Monty
the bonus
Ellis
Clooney.
in the
So
lobby
that's sort of the fun of Venice, because while there is the
shortly
official
after this
schedule, the official
you
press